Hello everyone. For today, for True Crime Tuesday, I am going to be reviewing the book The Falcon and the Snowman, a story of friendship and espionage. So this is actually one wild story, and this is why I insist that fiction can never be more off the rails than non-fiction, because no one would ever think of this. So there are two friends growing up, and one of them went on to work for a defense contractor, and the other became a drug dealer. The drug dealer's name, I forget his full name, but he went by Dalton Lee, and the person who went to work for defense contracting is Chris Boyce. And boy is it interesting, because growing up, these two were sort of clean-cut, all-American, very religious, of course, more so John Boyce than his friend Dalton Lee. Still, though, when this happened, it was very odd for both of the families to take. For 2 years, Chris Boyce, almost 2 years, worked at a company that did satellite communications. And he became disillusioned with the American government over interference in Australian elections. America's a democracy, Australia is a democracy, and democracies, it's thought, should be one another's ally. And the reason why the CIA was running interference in these elections was because the Labour Party was coming to power, and it wanted answers as to what a certain military installation, a U.S. military installation, was doing in Australia. And it was a relay station for communications from spy satellites. And so the CIA did what it could to dig up dirt on the Labour Party, and the party that was in power at the time knew about this. This was a big deal when it happened, and it caused the ouster of a prime minister from office. They were dismissed. Whitlam, I want to say, is that person's name. Now, Dalton Lee, his motivation was money. Imagine that, a greedy drug dealer. And yeah, he was just straight motivated by financials. Of course, Chris took financials as well. But for Dalton, definitely it was drugs. Unfortunately, he became addicted to some of the substances he sold, particularly heroin. He never became as bad a heroin addict as a lot of people, but still, he could never shake it. And he would use the money he got from the Russians to purchase more drugs. So how this scheme worked out is Chris did his thing and got the intelligence packages, oftentimes photographs or photocopies, to Dalton. Dalton went to Mexico, went to the Russian embassy, and would sell them, and they'd make anywhere from $10,000 to $50,000 in a month. Which, that's a lot of money now. That's even more money back then. And what's amazing about this is it would expose the fact that there weren't a lot of safety protocols for information that was top secret. People were allowed to be in the vault alone. They were allowed to punch in codes alone. You need two-person integrity on that. Ideally, to get into some of those vaults, you should probably need the good old synchronized turnkeys and stuff like that. So this led to reform. Unfortunately, it made these satellites, I don't want to say it made these satellites useless, because, they still observe, they still have sensors and whatnot, but Russians were able to counter them. And in fact, there were already signs that agencies were looking into this company, this defense contractors like TRW or something like that, because they noticed Russians changing their traffic and things like that. So the story of how Dalton Lee got caught doing this is absolutely amazing, because you've got the FBI, the CIA, NSA, NRO, all these organizations digging up intelligence. It was just blind, stupid luck. I'm not going to give away everything, but Dalton Lee gets high. He does some dumb stuff in Mexico. The Mexican police misidentify him as somebody who murdered a police officer, which he did not do. Nevertheless, though, they do get information out of him that he is a spy, because the gang that murdered the police officer was a communist bloc or a communist terrorist group. So they get that. They develop the photos. Because he's an American, the State Department has to get involved in his arrests. They have no idea about him, but they see the pictures, which has top secret material on it, and that, in a nutshell, is how he gets arrested. And then it's quite a long, drawn-out story from there, and they honestly almost got away with it, because people, the agencies, the National Security Council, really had difficulty because it wanted to prosecute them, but it didn't want to expose anything that was top secret or sensitive to the public, and the trial was public. And they found a way to get around this. I'm not going to give that one away because that is actually pretty interesting. But it was, needless to say, this is an amazing story, and if you can, please check it out.